Hello.
Hello.
And welcome, everybody. Been an interesting, apologize for getting a little late start. Not sure what's going on. Going to let that go. We're here now. It's Saturday at 5:30 Pacific time, so it must be time for Yagoda to speak with us about something, which last week, this week, and probably next week, we're going to look at what we're calling the Fool's Journey, which is, whoops, I had that up there. Going through the Major Arcana cards and sort of in detail. And it's a really interesting way to get to know either if you're new to tarot or if you want to just, if you already know, and hearing the story helps us learn. I will take half a second and do an initial banner to say, even first say thank you for joining us live. And we are happy to have your participation, questions and comments and introductions in the chat if you would like to. Thanks for watching it on the replay if that's what you're doing. And to support, you can subscribe to my channel. You can subscribe to Yagoda's channel. Links to all those things are in the description. And I think that's probably enough preamble since we're getting such a late start. I'll just hand it off to you, and and I'll get the cards up, get the visual up in a second. You could remind us maybe where we left off.
Yeah, basically the image that we have set up last time and the one that we're also going to be using this week has like cards divided into several rows. So we did the first row, and there are 2 more rows left. And
yeah, go
ahead.
I do need to ask you to send me that link again, because with our technical difficulties, when I restarted, it disappeared out of the chat. Thank you.
Yeah, I have it right here in front of me. So
right here, handy. Excellent.
I think we got it. Yeah, so basically what we're doing is we are covering the major arcana of tarot in depth for their understanding of the journey of soul's evolution towards completion and maturation. And originally I thought I was going to cover it during 1 week, and then we started doing it last week, and I was like, no, I'm like 30% of the road there. So we decided to split it in more parts because it's a very detailed job to do. And on the way, we also like to do mini readings as a way of giving it as an example on how can that be used in the reading, how that can be read. And last week we had like one person ask a question in the comments. So if you are here and you want to, ask a question, then prepare yourself, because there'll be time for you to do that. And if not, I think we'll just, do just the cards, because I think we already had a lot of questions for Kazri. So I don't know if you have any other ones that I could ask to use that as an example. So I see that Kazri is setting up the images right now.
I will think of a question while you're reviewing this, and I will also, maybe I'll take this even down. I will get a better view because I don't really need the top on there, and I'm going to figure out how I did that last time where we were just looking at the cards at the window.
Yeah, you mentioned it quite well, so it's possible.
Which card were we up to?
We did the first row. First you have the full on top, and then the first row. So now we're going to the second row, basically. And you can see the first row kind of starting here at the bottom, and it's moving down. Yeah, only it's like much more wide. So right now it's going to be the strength, I think. Yeah.
So we did. Oops, here we go.
You can kind of drag it out.
Yeah. Other than we'll just see them all, which I will zoom in a second. Yeah, we did that first row. It looks like we're up to strength, which is card 8. But yeah, I don't like this this stuff up at the top, so I'm gonna see what I can do to fix that.
Okay, well, you take your time, and I still have some things to say as an introductory remark, so you take your time while I do this. Anyway, yeah, so if you are new to this situation here, this live stream, then I recommend that if you can, that you start with, first of all, our live stream about the introduction to tarot, which you can find both on Kazri's channel and my channel. And then if you already are watching the whole Fool's Journey topic, then start with the previous episode, which was a week ago, because the cards, they go in order, basically starting from the Fool being the state of infinite potential manifestation and going forward through different stages of soul evolution. So yeah, basically it kind of really matters here to this is kind of how it looked last time. So perfect.
Yeah.
So it really matters to do those things in order. even if you're watching, because if you right now start at the strength and you've never seen any of this stuff before, then you will not know where. And I also really recommend that you also watch the numerology part of our live streams, because this is where we explain how numerology ties into tarot, and then in the tarot part we also showed how tarot ties into numerology at the same time. So this background knowledge that we already gave in the previous live streams is really important for you to be able to understand how basically all those pieces tie together, all the esoteric arts, so that you can see that they form a complete picture, and then you will understand our analysis better, because we already kind of are operating by an assumption that some terms are pretty obvious, like the fact that in numerology, for example, certain numbers are ruled by planets. This is something that you find out in the introductory course with us, and if this surprises you right now, then it just means that you didn't watch the previous episodes. And naturally, I can't stop to repeat all of this every time, because it took like an hour to explain that. So it's kind of also on you to educate yourself, like through what we provided, so that you can continue with us on what we are doing right now. Are you ready, Casby, or do you have anything else to set up?
I think I'm ready.
Okay, well, your job right now is to prepare the question for the future for yourself, in case no one comes through for the mini reading, then that I'm gonna do Casby again. But if you have any questions for tarot, then you can type it in the chat, and we will use your reading as an example to show how the Major Arcana cards can be used in the context of someone's personal reading. Now that I think about it, it would be funny if I shuffled the cards and not a single Major Arcana card popped in someone's reading, but I don't think it happened to me ever before when I needed it and it didn't come through. So, I don't think that I don't kind of like to force the cards when I the way I want to, because the cards are supposed to speak through me or in a channeling way. But so far, I haven't really had that issue. Well, another introductory remark is that even if you only get one Major Arcana card, it's always going to be the main theme of your reading, and it's going to be like the main event, the main situation, the main energy, and the minor arcanas are going to support that. Then sometimes you get multiple Major Arcanas, which shows that probably the event or the situation you're asking about is something that's very important on your individual soul life path. Anyway, so let's get into it. The last time when we left on our journey, we were at the stage of the Chariot, which as number 7 is ruled by the South Node. And the Chariot, I remind you briefly, was about balancing a creation that has become something more of a public property. And here, in Strength, we can see kind of what has happened to that creation. It's that further exploration, that further depth of journey from letting the creation run free in a balanced way to when the creation has become so powerful that it has become this lion that we are right now taming. Because, like I said in the last episode, what matters really in those Major Arcanas is what is the main persona, what is the main character on the card. And in the Strength card, you can see that the main figure kind of here is the lion tamer, not the lion itself, but the lion tamer, because some people, they look at the card and they think, oh, the Strength, so you have to be strong like a lion. But here, again, it's about the taming power. And again, the card is number 8, which is ruled by Saturn. I don't know if this person that's just in the comments should be removed, or I don't know who that is.
I'm sorry. There we go.
Yeah, I don't know who that is. If that's someone you know. Anyway, yeah, had some trolls in the chat. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, is that some random person. Anyway, some trolls in the chat. We're gonna ignore that. Anyway, what really matters on the card is the main person that is performing the action, which here is the lion tamer. And in the previous card, if you remember it, we had more than the creation that has been at that time polished to a more refined shape was the main object of interest. But here, the soul's journey, the way it evolves, is that you move on again from the creation to the person that has been the initiator of the creation. And then here, the creation has kind of become a beast that needs to be tamed. And in a way, there's a dual way that you can explain. You can explain is that on one hand, you can just say this card focuses on more so the more difficult parts of the creation that you have to deal with, or maybe the whole creation has become so powerful that it has now become a beast that you need to put in check, as Saturn rules control and discipline and structure and organization. So again, I'm going to use the same example that I used the last time during the last live stream, is that when you have a like a business or something that you created, or any online profile or any other sort of business, then over time it becomes a thing that starts to live its own life, and through things like community interactions, and it becomes a very interactive platform, and in a way it becomes very hard to control. So the strength card would be like the equivalent of dealing with the more difficult aspects of it, when you kind of have to put into submission. What I mean is that some people who are really accomplished on YouTube. Oh, okay. So Kaz was saying that who was to ban this person. So, okay. Yeah, good. Okay, thank you, Kazri. Like I just had to look at this.
Sorry, yeah, I wasn't going to verbally interrupt you, but
yeah. No, of course. You're right. You're right. We just we have to do some moderation. It happens. And it's very ironic because very like apropos what I'm saying. Anyway, I know that some people who are like very accomplished on YouTube that have like thousands of subscribers, they have people actually like doxing their physical address and stalking them in their home. This happens very often. And some people even like fly from abroad, which is like, this is a level of dedication. I'm like, wow, you actually took the time to to pay money for a plane ticket to do this kind of stuff. Like, wow, like, how bored are you? And also how much money do you have to waste? Really, as impressive. But the point is that this is an unfortunate but realistic expectation that you have to have if you, for example, start something really great that grows like you did in the previous chariot stage. And the strength card would be like the metaphor of having to tame this kind of situation, as I don't know, you have to call the cops on that person or get a restraining order or whatever. So it's more about dealing with the difficult aspects that need to be purged from the things that we create that we love, after all, right? Because you're not gonna shut down a big online channel that that you love just because there's one person, one bad apple that may make it difficult for you. So it's more about the purification, about being able to subdue the elements that unrightfully and unjustly try to maybe disturb the flow of the main mission of what your creation was. Because if you remember in that previous stage in the chariot, what was keeping the whole idea together was that as it grew exponentially, that there was still some sort of a main message, a main theme behind your creation that really mattered, that drew people in, that there was a level of authenticity behind your driving thought that was keeping the chariot together. And we're talking about reversals here, that if the card came in reversal, that meant that maybe your creation needed to work a bit on the integrity of its practice. So here, basically, we remain strong because we know that there is something valuable that we are fighting for, something that we want to clean it for a reason, not delete the whole thing, but purify the existing thing because we believe in it. And so dealing with some less desirable elements of it is just part of work, of part of the cycle of life, that tarot also describes. The other example I can use is, let's say that you build a beautiful house and you love that house, but I don't know, there's a plumbing issue, right? And it's not something that's faulty at the core. The house is still good, but sometimes these small issues just happen. It's part of life. So you're not gonna turn down the whole house. You fix the plumbing issue. So this is a strength card, and that's why it's associated with tarot, because it does take strength and endurance of character to be able to go through these kind of things and to be able to purge them and fix things, and not give up on the original project under the wave of opposition that this lion on the image represents. It takes the wisdom to know what to do, to know how to tame the lion and how to deal with it. So let's say that you would get this card in reverse. That might mean that, for example, you depending on the context, you may be losing patience, or maybe you're not putting enough patience into something that you really love, or you're giving up too easily. But if you couple it with other side cards like minor arcanas, it might be that you are potentially holding out for something that may not entirely be worth it. That I've also seen that in context with reversals, that maybe, especially in relationships, that I've seen it coupled with let's say you have the strength and then you have the Two of Cups, which is like an ultimate relationship card in reverse. That might mean that you're holding on to a partner that is not worth holding on to, and you are really sticking up for them, maybe some for their bad traits, and hoping that something's going to come out of it when they're not really worth your effort. So this can really go two ways, again, depending on the accompanying cards that you get in your reading, and you have to read the lines, read the cues of what is worth, of what is really worth fighting for, because only you know that. And again, the side cards will indicate if that is the case. But in any case, it's about the theme of a worthwhile fight or endurance regarding things that are close to your heart, or projects that very important to you. And here again, what matters is the tamer, again, not the project itself. Well, the project was the main personality in the previous card. Now, as we move on from the Strength card and we move on into the Hermit card.
And before we do that, I
go
was
ahead.
going to slow you down and say we do have, a couple of people watching live, and give them a chance to say, to ask if they have a comment or a question specifically on the Strength card, or want to say anything at all, even though there is a little bit of a delay. So there's that, and apologize that. Or you could take a minute. I don't know. I think you'd have to pull up a browser window, or you could try if you're looking at you're looking at the comment. I think if you click on it, you might be able to remove or block, or you might have to go to YouTube. I'm not sure, but you might take a second.
No. I actually have an option to remove, so I'm going to do that now. But I don't know if you wanted me to talk about anything else, or just
as far as about the situation, or
no, just the topic.
No, other things. No, yeah, I didn't have a comment. I'm working on my thinking about what my mini reading question might be a little bit in between all this.
Yeah.
So,
okay. You focus on that, and I'm gonna just remove this person, and and I think the comment too, because I don't want traces of this kind of stuff being there, because it just doesn't.
Yeah, if you could remove the comment even itself, that works. But I think the person probably should be blocked. It is an interesting, segment of society. There are people that just, and we'd have to look at their chart or whatever to see what's going on with them, that they just want to, I don't know, cause trouble. Because I think it's just a random, like, let me go and say things, incendiary things, and see if I can.
Yeah, absolutely. Like nobody I know anyway.
Not give them. Yeah, there we go. We want to not give them attention, but anyway. But there are a couple of people watching, so even if that person is still watching,
well, they're not anymore.
Yeah, so there are a couple of people watching. So on to the Hermit, number 9. Ooh, and 9 is in the 0 or 1 through 9 aspect is the end of the cycle.
Yes, exactly. This is what I wanted to also point out, that first of all, the 9 is the end of the cycle that we have started in the Magician, although it's not the end of the cycle of tarot, which we'll talk about at the very end, which probably is not going to be this week. It's probably going to be next week. Oops. But it's more like the end of the first part of the journey. And in my opinion, the Hermit is one of the most literal cards in tarot, which I'll like a lot of them are metaphorical. For example, Strength. I think that it really needs that interpretation, because people get confused about which part of it is supposed to be strong. So people tend to emphasize the lion. Well, in fact, it's the lion tamer that matters. But the Hermit is very straightforward, actually. And especially to those of us, I don't know if any of you have ever witnessed like an actual in real life hermit. Like, I know it may sound a bit outlandish, but that actually exists in the world. Maybe it just comes from my experience in Europe. But there were those touristy areas that I used to go to on field trips as a kid, and there were basically those places to visit. They were called the Hermit's Hut, and it was like an actual hut when the actual hermit like lives, and you can see it's like a very simple wooden construction, like a very simple life with a lot of prayer and stuff. So believe it or not, there are still people that live this kind of life. Mostly what happens is when you have it's like a Catholic thing, when you have like a big building where normally there's like there are nuns and priests. I think it's called a convent.
Yeah, for nuns it's a convent, and priests usually don't live together. Sometimes monks, I guess, live together, and that's, what is a monk?
Yeah, basically a convent.
Yeah, we know what you
mean. Yeah, so basically what happens is that sometimes a person reaches a level of spiritual ascension that is so high that they break away from the convent. And because the convents are often like in mountainous, isolated areas, like on top of a peak of a mountain, that person leaves the convent physically and they build a hut in the woods, like below the convent, so that they're, in the middle of nowhere, kind of, And and that person is kind of going on an even higher level from the spiritual journey they had in the monastery, because they want to feel like there's absolutely no distractions physically that are surrounding them. And having visited those areas physically, I can just tell how literal this kind of situation here is. I'm sorry to interrupt again, but I think this time we have a person that's on your end, Kazri, because I cannot ban them. It's someone else. They're spamming the chat. Like, okay, this is funny. Like, we must be getting famous here because we never had this kind of problem before the live stream. So,
Let's see.
I guess it's a compliment.
Well, other than Tarot Destroyer, so the comment, we could just take a second.
This is basically it's basically like a spam where they put the same thing over and over to block the chat.
Okay.
They copy like a random thing, this is like a Wikipedia quote to spam the chat. So
okay, yeah, I guess other than since it's called tarot, maybe they're just doing that, which is interesting. Tomorrow, well, I guess a couple things I could say. Let me see.
The information is not really relevant to the subject, though. So
yeah, or maybe so you've seen this before, because I know in some ways like it's not, and it's here twice, but it's not here like 10 times. Should we ask if Tarot Destroyer wants to say why they're telling us this? And we'll give
you give me benefit of the doubt. Sure, you can try this.
Yeah, just because before I ban them, Tarot Destroyer, we don't quite understand why you're telling us this. And so if you're an actual person that just was trying to contribute and we don't follow you, I'll give you 15 seconds to say, yes, I'm a real person. Please don't ban me. I'm not here to spam. And if you don't respond, then who knows? Maybe they even posted and then left because they're just going everywhere to post. I don't know. Weird day. It's funny because when I was having such a difficult time getting wheels under me to get this thing started, had some tech problems, had some others, just it occurred to me that what I want to talk about is what the hell is going on. I feel really out of whack. I'm a little, with Mars coming up to hit Pluto next Wednesday for Valentine's Day. I'm a little bracing myself for that, but that seems a little, that's several days away, but probably only means it's several degrees away, right? Or even less.
I'll tell you what's going on. There's a very powerful new moon happening right now, and that maybe hitting your chart somewhere. And it's like yesterday and today are peak days, especially as it gets darker during the night. So the new moon can cause some things to come to the surface relative also to your own chart. So if you have anything that that's close to that or opposite that, these two are the strongest from my experience. That
which degree is that? Or I guess I could look that up.
Yeah, I don't know exactly, but I know that it's in Aquarius. So I don't think that you have anything in your chart, but I think that you
don't have anything in it.
Yeah, but it's opposite your ascendant. It's like opposite your ascendant in Leo, so that may cause that basically.
Yeah, depending on the degree. I do have Yeah,
the actual it's like the actual new moon. It's already past peak, but you can kind of feel it for the day that was the highest was yesterday. You can kind of feel it up to 2 days after even. So what's happening is that the new moon itself was around 2140 something degrees Aquarius. So that's 7 degrees away from your ascendant more or less. But right now it has moved into Pisces, where it has probably moved into all your Pisces planets that I think you do have, if I remember correctly. So
yes, let's see.
It's your Saturn, basically. Basically, so it's on your Saturn.
Okay, so my Saturn's at 17. Oh, show my chart. Show the transits. Well, maybe the moon is conjunct Saturn. Where's Saturn? Right now. Because
it's a bit before, but yeah, it's still, if it's in the same house, you're still gonna feel that, even if it's not exactly.
No, but I mean the moon in the sky transiting.
Oh, transit. Moon
is exactly hitting Saturn. Maybe that's, I don't know what I'm feeling. Well, and then too, because I do my Pisces, or my Saturn's in Pisces, and that's coming up to there, but not. It's 10 degrees away. But yeah. Anyway, long tangent about that. Let me bring my focus back to here.
Yeah, it's kind of inevitable. It's good to practice, because if that challenge grows bigger on either of our ends, then you always get some trolls. It's just, part of life. So,
yeah.
You deal with that.
Well, and I guess I could maybe leave this one, or do we don't really care.
I think that I would rather not have the chat filter if that's okay with you. This is not a relevant comment. They didn't even say hi. It was just, some random spam about some Wikipedia quote. How is that relevant,
Okay. On we go.
Yes, so I was in the middle of talking about the hermit card, and I was talking about my experience of meeting actual hermit environments. By the way, you can't actually meet a hermit because a hermit actually will they will know when their area is something that has become kind of like infested by tourists, and then they are forced to move. But you can kind of hear about the lifestyle from the whole thing, and the sometimes they leave like items behind, like clothing or whatever, so you can kind of literally see the solitude and isolation. So the hermit is ruled by Mars because of the number 9. So what happens is that after the stage of strength, where you have conquered and purged so many difficult things, you kind of feel like, first of all, there's an amount of tiredness here, which is why you seek for isolation. Like, it's not tiredness just from physical standpoint, but it's a tiredness from a spiritual.
Uh-oh. And she disappeared. Oh, are we haunted? Yeah, I think she'll probably be back, I assume. Here she comes.
Well, I have no idea what happened. I swear, like, I didn't do anything. It just, but am I back to the whole thing? Is it all fine?
You're back. Yeah, it's like I said, I don't know if we're haunted or so I have friends that would probably say I'm being cyber stalked, but I think it was just
it was weird, but I'm back, and I don't know what happened. Like, it just like the whole thing went on refresh on me, like, and then it came back. Like, I didn't click anything because my hands are away from the whole stuff.
You
and,
might have lost like internet connection for just like 10 or 15 seconds for some reason. I'm glad it's not a power outage. That was my possible guess, but yeah.
Yeah, but it's, thank God it was fast, and I'm back. Anyway, so yes, talking about the whole hermit experience, we here, and I don't know where you're still hearing me, but here we end up at a stage where we get tired because of all the spiritual energy we had to put into transformation in the strength stage, and so we end up retreating into a more peaceful space for the sake of being able to purify ourselves and regain our focus, because Mars is a planet of defense, but also focus when it comes to the spiritual direction. So here we stand for something, we defend something, and we learn about what it is that really matters to us. And this is something that I'm going to interject very briefly when it comes to Vedic astrology. If you have Mars-ruled lunar mansions, which actually Kesri and I both do, then you can see in the journeys of those people, or even if you watch fiction with actors who have their this placement is very strong in their chart, you can see that they often find themselves in a situation where they very aggressively advocate for something, and throughout their lives they may even change their reason for doing that. So they kind of re-evaluate what they're really fighting for and if it really matters to them, and they kind of start often from a youth where their anger is kind of misdirected towards more mature activism, because this is how Mars works. And this is what the hermit does, is that it takes all the fighting in the strength and asks itself, what am I fighting for? And as a result, the hermit gains all the wisdom of knowing the reason for their cause. And the lantern here symbolizes the lamp of knowledge, the light of wisdom, the light of enlightenment and inspiration. Because here we reach enlightenment behind the fundamental question of the universe of, why am I even here? Why was I born? Why have I created this beautiful thing that has kind of assumed a life of its own? So here we really start understanding our motivations, and also spiritual universal motivations at the end of the first part of the cycle, where we for the first time get an answer to the question of, why am I even alive, and why did I create all of that? Compare this to the Fool. The Fool doesn't ask itself why it exists. It exists because it exists. It's just happy to be. But here, this is the first time we really start questioning things to get some sort of answers, and this is where the soul assumes a form that's looking for sort of a goal, which, from the divine perspective, is only an incomplete part of the journey, but it's still the first time when the idea of purpose even awakens in a person in such a deep way. And when the idea is formed, once it's formed, it can really be eradicated. So it's very interesting in that regard. So when you have the Hermit card in reverse, it can go two ways. So either you are thinking too much about something, and you're overthinking the reasons for something and your direction, when actually you already have all the tools and the wisdom knowledge to act, and you should just be going into action. Or you're not thinking about the reasons why you're doing something enough, and you're acting impulsively and without foresight. Again, this is going to depend on the side cards that you get with that, but it can go two ways like that. Then either you have really been skipping on that introspection and solitary inner quest, and you should return to it, or you're overthinking and not acting enough because you're too hesitant to leave that stage of exploration, which isn't necessary, but it's not going to last forever because, as you know, this is only card number 9 and we have many cards ahead of us. So again, this does not last forever. So you wanted me to pause after every card, so I guess that's what I'm doing because you asked me to. So
yeah, a brief pause. To just give anybody listening that wants to ask a question or make a comment. And theoretically, I would have something to say. I guess I could say about the Hermit, which is still mostly on topic, is that I notice a lot of people, or not a lot, but several people in my life have said that, that they're the Hermit and they struggle to like be around people. And if they could, they would just live separately away from everybody. And I maintain that that's pretty, I think there are some people, but I think it's a very small fraction. I don't know, a fraction of a % of the population, maybe. And that most people are social creatures that need each other. I don't know if you have a comment on that, or that's not exactly about tarot. It's about the Hermit.
No, it's okay. It's about the nature of existence, and tarot is part of that. Well, I think that it's like a very unique recipe. It depends on the person of how much isolation they need, how much people they need, and all you have to do is make the right formula. It's like with cooking, you add the right ingredients, as in the right people, in the right amount, and you get the flavor that you like, and everyone has something that they need. And kind of like with food, some people like food that's very spicy, aka they probably like a lot of social gatherings. Some people like food that's more mild, or they get upset, the stomach hurts, and it's everyone's different. So your point, I guess here is correct, that no one really needs to be isolated fully, and no one likes to be like forever alone their whole life. We need people to stimulate our experiences. But there are times in a person's life where isolation is necessary for the purpose of awakening certain spiritual responses, which is why the Hermit does it on purpose. Because at the beginning, the Hermit, the way it comes from, let's say that he comes from this convent of religious people that they're used to, they have a lot of community activities going on there. So at the beginning, might be hard for the person to change that routine, but they do it purposefully to expose themselves more to the universe, to God, so that in the silence they can hear God speak more clearly. But that doesn't mean they're going to be a hermit forever. It can be a phase of their lives, right? Actually, sometimes what happens is that the people, in real life, at least it's my European experience, that these people, having spent a lot of years in solitude, they go back to the convent and they assume leadership positions because people hold them in high esteem now, as they assume that their level of spirituality has increased through the difficult experience of having to live in the woods and probably pee in a bucket and wash in the river. That these are hard things for the human body. The cold, the solitude, relying on no one for help and relying only on God and universe for everything. This is a hard thing to do. It sounds nice in theory, but like try doing it for one day. Most people would want out. Like it's so hard to do. So people assume that their character has been so polished and refined that now they have the spine, the strength to lead the whole religious organization because they have experiential wisdom of experiencing God in solitude. So again, this doesn't last forever, but I think that what matters is how you approach it. Like in a way, I think this kind of experiences come to you, that it's kind of forced upon you. Either it's inside your head that you just get a thought, shit, I should be by myself for the next month, or however long that lasts for you, or externally maybe you can find yourself isolated. That it just so happens. For example, I can tell you from my hermit part of the journey, something that happened to me is that there was a time in my life where all the people that I thought I could rely on, like family and friends, suddenly there was like a deaf silence unless they wanted something. And as much as at the beginning I was very hurt and disappointed, I can recognize now that the purpose of this was for me to expand into a completely new situation and new life directions. And that was years ago, but I did end up going into astrology more because of it, and meeting new people from like different countries, different environments compared to the environment that I was raised in, which helped me expand my perspective. So in a way, removing the people that would only sustain what I have already learned, or the old environment that I had to grow out of, that would be unproductive, right? That would not really help. So in a way, it was forced upon me, maybe because I was too young to really understand that. So I think especially when you're young and you may not even fully be able to have the maturity to embrace your spirituality, but the universe still wants you to do it. You kind of get this, early life kick in the butt for the purpose of, kickstarting your development. But when you're older, you kind of start looking for, for that solitude more. And that's why, the hermit is after the strength, because the strength being ruled by Saturn is where you kind of learn how to appreciate the wisdom behind solitude when you're wrestling with something, right? And that's why in the Mars stage, you can easily become the leader and the spiritual direction because you are comfortable with solitude. You can be in it if you want to, and then if you abandon that solitude, then you do it for a good reason. So there is this kind of lack of panic where you're like, oh my God, I need to be around someone, that disappears there. You purify yourself from that, and because of this, you truly enjoy the quality of people's company, and you may, become very selective, as in you only associate with those that have goals and ideas similar to yours, which is, again, hermit spiritual direction. You can't lead a group of people if they don't agree with your vision, right? It's not going to work. And this is something that, can be really hard in nowadays society, where we all, people love things like, clubbing, and, they think they have to get along with all their coworkers. And then they realize, shit, I don't like my job and I don't like the coworkers because I don't believe in capitalism. What am I doing here? So if this is how you feel, then this is not going to be a good place for you, right? Some people love the hustle and they thrive on it, whatever works for them. But some people, they only do it because everyone else does it. And then one day they wake up and they don't want to do it anymore. So the hermit stage, in a way, represents this kind of experience. And like I said, the reversals can indicate fear and timidness in embarking on the journey, or again overdoing it and not getting out of that stage to go to the next stage, which we will talk about right now, which is the Wheel of Fortune, where we kind of we're going back to square one, because like the Magician, it's a 10, which reduces to 1, which is ruled by the sun. And as you can see, like I always said, that every character in this in a tarot card becomes central for a certain reason, right? So here in the Wheel of Fortune, the central part actually is the wheel. Like we can see several figures around it. We can see like the Sphinx, the bird, an angel, some sort of a cow with wings, some sort of a character, and all the snake, like all the mythical creatures around it. But what really turns our focus in this card is the wheel itself, which means that here, because ultimately tarot is the journey of God, you are not really the person anymore. The hermit, you become fate itself, because the Wheel of Fortune is the card of fate. And what that means is that ultimately, whenever a cycle ends, like it did with the hermit, and a new cycle begins. So that can show you that even if you are at the end of a very tough cycle and your life sucked for, I don't know, the last 10 years, it doesn't mean it's going to suck for the next 10 years, because the wheel always spins back. And there's always some sort of a fresh start, a change to your energy after some time elapses. And that can also work the other way around. And maybe you're someone who has been very responsible for the last 10 years and you think you got away with it. But then, with the Wheel of Fortune, well, no, suddenly right now you're in a situation where you have to start taking accountability, right? So there is a very big emphasis here on your soul mission and the consequences of your actions. Because, some people, they associate the sun with the egoic consciousness, while in fact it's the moon that is the egoic consciousness. But the sun is about establishing the kingdom on earth that is congruent with the expression of our soul. So the sun is actually a very moral planet. It is self-focused and it's authoritarian, yes, but the authority is based more like on, well, this is who I am, this is my soul's expression on this earth, my soul is doing this on this planet, and you cannot change what my soul is, so I'm going to do that and you're not going to stop me, basically. So ultimately what this card talks about is that let's say that you've gone through a long cycle where you felt like you're really under the weather no matter what you did. Well, that's ultimately going to turn around and you're going to reap the rewards of all the good things that you've done, because if your soul has continued with the path of integrity, then there's no way that it's not going to pay off. It ultimately always it does. And the same, if you have been ignoring your soul's calling completely, then ultimately the things that you've built that were based on this false foundation are going to crash. So here again, this is more of an non-corporeal card. The fate itself here matters more than the person. And the sun also rules the divine order, which means that not only you should focus on your own kingdom, but the whole planet, should focus on showing their soul's expression on earth. Like if everyone showed their soul on this earth, honestly, uniquely, what a beautiful planet that would be, right? And people struggle with that. So that's why, here faith is more important than one person, because it shows that there are all these elements that, that make up our faith, all these people with their own individual faiths. And what ultimately matters is that every one of us being like one ray of the sun that shines upon the earth, expressing itself freely. That this freedom of soul is bigger than us, it's bigger than our ego, it's bigger than our consciousness. So whenever you see this card, you can expect that being reestablished in some form in your life, depending on the question. So let's say you ask a career question, right, and you get a Wheel of Fortune. So the interpretation of that would be, well, you will right now move on to a path relative to your career that's closer to your soul's expression than the one that was before, right? So maybe, I don't know, let's use a very mundane setting for an average person. Let's say that You have worked very hard in your company and you have had a lot of expertise, and you would be a good leader because you have merit of character for that position, and you would be good for others. Then you're going to get a promotion, not for the sake of a higher paycheck or your self-satisfaction, but because the people need you, because your soul needs to express leadership qualities, for starters. Or maybe let's say that you have been single for a very long time and you want to meet someone, and it's not really that you have messed up, but maybe just you haven't had any luck relative to meeting the right person yet, and then it indicates that there is a fated partner for you, which doesn't mean that it's going to be perfect, right? But it means there's a perfect soul whose issues match yours, which is what I call love. It's when your issues match theirs is when love works, really, because that's what life is, not perfection, but when you can live with their issues and you can still love them the next day, that's when it works. So that means that fated soul level love is there for you. Now, if that card pops up in reverse, it may be that, for starters, it can indicate that you are on the wrong side of the wheel of fortune here. So maybe, let's say that you're someone who, I don't know, defrauded your company, then probably the IRS is coming after you, or you have to give the money back, something like this, Or maybe you've been avoiding quitting something that you hate, and you are going to be, forcibly kicked out of your job just so that you can look for something that you're passionate about and that really makes you you, right? Because maybe you're doing something because society tells you to, and you're not doing things that are based on your soul's expression as a result. And that's always the problem. So the wheel in reverse can indicate a more brutal kick into this direction. Or any question relative to any decision that you are making and you're asking the card when you get the wheel, one way or another, the order is going to be established. This is like the one card that I found that even the reversal makes it so that the order is still happening, because you can't turn off the sun, right? You cannot extinguish the power of the soul. It's just the way with the reversal, it's going to be more unpleasant. You may resist the current more. Maybe it's going to feel bad for you because you have been against your own soul for so long that when it comes back into alignment, it can feel bad for you, right? Or maybe, if you're asking about the decision you need to make and the card shows in reverse, then means, well, no, if you make this decision, you're going to put yourself on the path that's against who you are, and then ultimately we're going to have to correct you, so that's not going to work long term. That can be something like this.
And I know I don't intend to make this be any longer or slower than it needs to be, but I'm a little, and I know that there's various different decks, and you actually don't really use this particular deck, but I was wondering if you wanted to speak to some of the symbols and images on the card and what they mean. Because I see we have, 4 things, well, sort of 5. We have 4 winged, a person, and then winged animals in yellow, and then we have the snake in yellow. Looks like maybe the Sphinx at the top, and then the red creature, which is sort of like, I guess, an animal-human hybrid creature. So that's lots of interesting things going on. But 2, not every deck has this imagery.
Yes, actually, what matters here is the representation. So what I mean to say here is that on some cards, in some decks with the wheel of fortune, you have a person, like a figure that is blindfolded, and that basically shows like the representation of saying that fate is blind, right? Because the expression of our soul is something that happens kind of instinctively, like you can't control yourself, right? Like, okay, let's say that you were born with a certain hair color, right? You don't work hard for that color to regrow on your head, even if you put dye on. It's just gonna happen. And it's the same with fate or with the wheel of fortune, that it's kind of something that blindly expresses itself. So this is the first thing about the imagery. The thing on the top that we have is the Sphinx, and the Sphinx is a representation of objective wisdom. But the Sphinx also historically is known for riddles. The Sphinxes are the one that it's like, I don't know if you ever read the King Oedipus is like something from ancient Greece. In Europe, it's kind of like obligatory learning that they give kids in high school. So I was forced to read this even if I didn't want to. It's like a cultural difference. So in King Oedipus is someone who had to go to a Sphinx to resolve a riddle regarding his own destiny. So the Sphinx kind of foretold his future, which in his case was not very nice because it involved, trigger warning, sleeping with his own mother without knowing, as we all know from Oedipal complex. But the Sphinx basically foretold his future. And the Sphinx foretold his future in a way that completely confused him, but it was only because he didn't know his own fate. So again, the Sphinxes are very strongly associated with fate and knowing fate, and then transcribing the events of fate in ways that are mysterious to us. So again, the question here is, how well do you know yourself on a soul level? Because if you know yourself on a soul level, the things that happen to you shouldn't really surprise you that much, even if they're very sudden, because you're like, okay, well, this happened because my soul wanted something, right? But here, the Sphinx here is asking you that question, in that regard, that how well do you understand the fated mysteries of the universe? Why did they happen? Why was something meant to happen? And that can be very hard if it indicates some sort of loss, right? Why did I lose this house, this job, this person, right? And then if you know yourself, you know, well, it's because I was not meant for it. Like, for example, my last working experience, when I transitioned into spirituality from the normal working world, it was very unfair, and it was very unpleasant because I was working in a historical company in the town I was raised in Europe, because it has like a lot of tourists and a lot of people come. So, and I speak several foreign languages, so that's the kind of environment where they employ people with those kind of skills. And very sad fact is that a lot of those historical sites, some of which have been the site of a massacre of World War II victims, are being right now exploited for capitalistic gain. Which means that, for example, you have a place where people used to die shot by Nazis, and right now there is a Coke machine, and people take selfies there. Which working there, honestly, I found that to be disgusting morally.
Wow.
Which is one of the reasons why I'm glad I don't work there anymore. Like I didn't know how I looked before, because before that I only entered as a tourist from a different perspective, and we had work on like a school field trip, so it was pretty clean spiritual. But then I worked when there's an employee, and I was supposed to guide the group and translate what the guide is saying, and I saw like the whole backstage of it. And I think maybe the passage of time also, because it got worse from the time when I was there as a student, time when I was there as an employee, and it was really like morally absolutely disgusting. And then what happened is that the reason why this job was my trigger in my awakening from the working world into the spiritual world was that it was actually the first and only time in my life that I got fired from something. It was because one of the people in the trip got sick during my speaking and the guy speaking, so I had to interrupt the whole tour and say, "Excuse me, somebody needs an ambulance. I cannot stay with you. I have to go and take care of this person, because if they die on my watch, I can go to jail," literally, right? And the fun part is that the company policy didn't include any training for this kind of situation. No one told me what to do, so I had to call the office and say, "Well, what is the policy for this kind of situation?" The company told me to leave the group and basically hand over the sick person to my coworker, who was supposed to come and pick them up and deal with them instead, while I go back to translating the.
Other than you, did the person who got sick speak the language of your country, or what did they need?
No, no. They only spoke English. Yeah.
So they would need. Did they go with somebody who spoke English or no?
Yeah. Basically, my coworker who picked them up also spoke the language, but in the meantime, they needed me because I had to ask questions like, "Do you need water? Do you need to lay down? Do you need, I don't know, to drink, eat something? Do you need maybe like a over-the-counter painkiller that I can give you, something like this?" So I was mostly sitting with them, and it lasted like almost an hour until my coworker picked the person up and took them to deal with them. But and of course I come back and I just finished my day normally, and I didn't think much of it. But what happened as a result is that some customers that went there, they were like very entitled people who, even though they knew what was happening, they basically tried to sue the company for having to wait, even though I explained the situation, even though it was an emergency. And as a result, they fired me to kind of make me the scapegoat of the whole situation, because they were like, "Oh, they tried to pin it on me," basically. And that like ultimately like really disgusted me with this sort of situation. And I was also going through some other family stuff at the time, and I was really trying to hold on to something valuable, because I was very young and with like no guidance whatsoever, but I was still trying to make my way in the world using the skills that I had. And it was just like so completely unfair that I was in that stage that I really associate with the Wheel of Fortune, in a way, that stage of surprise. And I know that now that it's because this is the kind of situation that's completely not for me, because many people can go in and translate things when they speak English. Like, it's not that hard to do, right? And yet it's true that I was pretty good at it. But if I'm someone who has so many spiritual gifts and the ability to decipher wisdom of so many things, then why would I waste my time doing something that is not only unfair, exploitative, that I'm very happy to call out all over the internet, and something that's also very repetitive that people who don't have my intuitive talents can do. So in a way, the point of that was to bring me closer to my soul's expression, not to hurt me, but also to maybe reveal certain things about the consumerist part of the world, which is something that needs to be spoken about, so that you can kind of see like, I didn't read tarot back then because it was a long time ago, but I bet if I did, I would have this card pop up or something, because this is the kind of situation that people ask themselves, is the Sphinx part of the real? I don't know what is going on. Why am I suffering? So the wheel shows that there's always a reason for your suffering. It's the other interpretation that you can have, that let's say you get like a lot of negative cards, like very heavy transformational cards, and then you get a wheel in the middle of that. That means that there is a reason for these bad things happening, and it's for you to understand something or maybe advocate against that thing in the future, basically. Like, honestly, if someone asked me about how this looks right now, I would condemn this industry like full on, because I really think that the people who have died there, they are turning in their graves, looking at what has happened over there. So I think it's more of a European problem because like most of the world wars happened in on the ground of Europe, so this is why there are so many like in a way sacred places where people put like flowers and those lamps like that you light with a lighter, like fire, like memorial stuff basically, because there are many opportunities to do so, like kind of there are many souls that deserve respect for that, and it's something that's very sadly getting swept away by again the
need for
globalization, profit.
The need for the need for a soda machine.
Yeah, exactly.
You gotta put it somewhere. Yeah, that's terrible.
Yeah, some people. Yeah, go ahead.
No, you go.
Okay, because I think you want to say something. I want to actually answer your question about the symbolism. Some people actually associate also the Wheel of Fortune with what is called the roll of the dice, but actually the meaning behind the Wheel of Fortune is that there's no random roll of the dice. It's never random. The universe is never random. The universe is purposeful, and even if it's trying something new, it's because he wants to try something new, not because it's random. Like he wants to always try something for a purpose, which is something we discover more in the Justice card, which we'll talk about in a second. But in a way, the Sphinx shows that there is no randomness. So when it comes to those four figures, around, in the four corners, they're actually supposed to represent zodiac signs, the fixed zodiac signs of Taurus, Leo, Aquarius, and Scorpio. Now, I think that the thing in the bottom left is the bull, so this might be Taurus, like the bull with wings, the winged bull. And then next to it,
the lion in the lower right would be Leo. Or
this is Leo. Yes, it's the lion with wings. It's kind of like a bit like the lion from the Strength card. The lion from the Strength card has now become a symbol of wisdom because we transcended that card. And the bird in the top right is going to be the eagle because it's a symbol for Scorpio is the eagle. And Aquarius is going to be the water bearer, the human figure in the top left, because Aquarius is a humanoid. So basically, what happens is that because the fixed signs are at the end of every cycle, while the cardinal stars that are the beginning, and the mutable kind of show the transition more in between. Here it shows that you have all this fixed wisdom that helps you to understand the fixed cycles of the universe. That's why these signs have been chosen in particular, together with the serpent, which is the Kundalini awakening of the fact that any human experience that you have, even if turbulent, is an expression of your higher soul trying to reach for something. So in a way, it shows that if you are startled by something that happens in your physical life, that means they're just unevolved, because the soul is never really that surprised. It's like watching a movie instead. So basically, the serpent shows the descent and the ascension also from between the lower and higher levels of consciousness, basically. So that's the spiritual element of that. I'm trying to remember what the red figure was, because it's been quite a while since I studied that. Yes, I know what this was. This was an Egyptian thing. It was an Egyptian mythology thing. It was the figure that makes the death transition into the underworld, like the Egyptian that got. I think his name is Anubis, if I'm not mistaken. It was one of the Egyptian deities. It's basically a symbolism of transition between life and death, which is a symbolism of change, which the Wheel of Fortune indicates. So again, there is also an indication that whenever we go through any transition in life, there are invisible spiritual forces that help the human selves, the lower selves, the unconscious selves that are startled to be get into that new stage of your life. That there's always something that's helping you, that you're never alone, even if this change is very brutal. And as someone who has been through that several times in her life, I can attest for that this is indeed it's indeed true. Like at some point when you go through it many times, you kind of just like if things were stable, I'd be more surprised. That's how you get after some time. But I know not everyone has like so many things like this happen in your life. Fun fact, astrologically, if you have a lot of 8th house planets, or if you have like a very strong 8th house prominence, then you will experience more of these sort of transitions in your life, especially if it's the sun or the moon. Myself, I have the South Node in the 12th house, which indicates like a lot of these kind of changes in life. And as you go more into the North Node in 2nd house, your life gets more stable as you know better who you are as an adult and you grow into that. But in what I leave behind me definitely was full of 8th house changes of letting go, like everything that I've ever known physically, so many times. So yeah, I think I covered most of the symbols. The wheel, like the Wheel of Fortune is the wheel itself is pretty obvious.
I guess I will insert the question in case somebody watching wants to ask. As I try to come up with, I think the last time I asked a question, it was sort of muddled. What when you do either a full reading or in this case a mini reading, what types of questions, or what's a good way, maybe a good and a bad example of questions that work well with tarot?
Oh, excellent question. Yes, I like this question. It's very on point. And I wish some of the paid clients that I had would have the foresight that I'm about to give you now. So yeah, this is a good question if you want to ask me or any other tarot reader for a reading. Avoid yes or no questions. Although sometimes I have, if I found that it was important, I have had tarot actually help me with that. But I'm very intuitive, so I would say it's just me who's lucky. Don't bank on that, you know. Approach tarot not like a genie in a bottle, but more with the desire to understand. So even if you do have the urge to ask a yes or no question, there should always be a why. Let's say that you have a desire towards something and you want to ask tarot, well, is this desire meant to fulfill for me? If yes, then why is it good for me? And if no, why should I let go of it? Don't be like a child that stomps their foot. It's like, oh my God, but I wanted this candy. I'm not getting it. Stomp, stomp. And, you know, why is tarot not giving me what I want? Like, look, esoteric arts are for, you know, maturation of the soul. It's like the highest level that you can get in this you know, human form, like the highest pursuit you can have. Actually, I take that back. He's the second highest. The highest one is letting go even of that for the purpose of completely surrendering to the unknown, even without using those things. That's the highest thing you can do on this earth, complete surrender. And the esoteric arts to understand is like the second thing. And I can tell you, for example, that already in my personal life, I'm kind of aiming more for like the highest stage, but I am, you know, in a way forced to go to this stage because there are other people who need me. So I did it from that perspective. But you know, the lower stages would be, you know, going on the daily grind, not even asking yourself why is my life the way it is, not asking yourself any of the WH questions, just, you know, going through the grind. Well, the lower stage would be actively harming other human beings and thinking instinctually worse than an animal, basically. So you can kind of see the scale of consciousness and the attitude that you have as a result of that. So yeah, you have to approach tarot at least with the second to last, you know, idea of understanding. The esoteric, it starts there. You can go there from a point of lower consciousness, or it's never going to work. And then you get all these malcontents who are like, tarot is not real, astrology is not real, and you're delusional. And, you know, or maybe those who are like religious freaks that instead use religion to kind of blind themselves to lack of sensitivity, or those who are complete atheists and they believe the dollar bill is God, you know, basically. So, yeah, leave that mentality out the door if you want to, you know, ask tarot any question. Be open-minded, and in a way, just let tarot tell you whatever it wants to tell you. And be prepared that it might be uncomfortable.
And in the phrasing of the question, would it be, you know, tell me about my relationship, or does it need to be more specific? Yeah, in the actual phrasing of the question, because I know it's important to maybe have it be like one sentence of a question. You don't want to just, yeah.
No, because ultimately what matters is the energy behind it. So let's say that someone is asking about a relationship, right? And what's on your mind when you ask a question? You abstractly think of the object of your question. That might be a person, you know, or any financial, physical matter. So the person here becomes a symbol for whatever is going through. So if you were meant to make like a very shortened mental image of this relationship, you see the other person and everything they provoke in you, all the feelings they provoke in you. So this is your real question. You're asking about the energy that comes with them. And tarot knows that, you know. The issue starts when the ego comes in and starts making demands. When like, will this person be mine? They're mine, you know, not what are they provoking in me? What's the purpose of growth of the relationship? But can I have them the way I can have a new Barbie doll? You know, that's where it gets problematic, you know. So the best thing you can do is maybe focus on the pure energy and maybe leave the question slightly unformed, but the reader will understand. A good reader will know that, okay, you want to understand what part of the journey tarot provokes in you. But I would say that what matters, after phrasing the question, what matters the most is also what do you do with the answer? Like, I had a client once, you know, without dropping names, and it was a long time ago, so probably this person won't be identified. It was like 3 years ago. And it was someone who had an absolute knack for dating like the wrong man. And when I say wrong man, I mean they were like in jail, like that kind of thing. And she came to me for reading desperate. And I told her, look, I can pull out the cards, but I don't need the cards. The problem is that you are dating a man who's in jail. You need to not date someone who's in jail for your life to get better. It's quite simple. It's not rocket science here. It's simple math. And this was someone who was in such resistance to accepting that fact that no amount of cards would help them. This was someone who was completely like hell-bent on that one guy. He's like, oh, but he's coming out in a year, and then he'll love me when he comes out. And I tell her, well, there's no guarantee he won't be back behind the bars in 6 months after that, and you won't go about it all over again, And this person wasn't even trying to, analyze their motivations and shit. Why am I? Maybe my father was in jail, and I hope that I can fix him through dating a man like this, right? This was the kind of person that wasn't even asking themselves the question of why they're doing that. They were just blindly going into that full-on, so convinced that they are right, because like, he's the one. I know he's the one. Please tell me the cards are telling me that he's the one. She wanted to hear, oh yes, the cards say that you'll be together forever after he leaves the jail, and you'll be all rainbows and unicorns. The expectation of the response that I would have as a reader was like immense. The expectation is the keyword. So again, the way you interpret the answer is equally as important as is the question, basically. So yeah, don't ask the tarot things that you don't want to know the answer to. Quite frankly, some people don't want to know the answer. They want, they want to be cuddled, and yeah, tarot doesn't cuddle anyone. Tarot spills the tea like there's no tomorrow. Like the way even if someone doesn't tell me something about themselves, the cards often do tell me. And a gifted reader can quite frankly see through things, very well. And the more experience you have, the more clarity you have. So yeah, and sometimes I've also had people get angry with me because they didn't want to hear the obvious facts that are in the reading. Like sometimes the answers are difficult. Like I had this, I was reading for a close friend once, like someone who used to be my friend and is not anymore. And I knew them more like online, so I didn't know their personal life story, but they were always coming to me with like a bad relationship, one or another. And they came to me with, another, bad guy in their life. And here it was not really like in the previous example that I used, but it was like, I was wondering, yeah, this is interesting. Why is that the case? And the cards were pointing out very clearly. And I told them, honestly, you have very difficult karma in with relationships, that you pick certain kinds of people for a specific reason. And the cards were very black and white about why and what is exactly happening. And I told them, and they didn't like it because they wanted to hear they were going to meet a person that is not problematic tomorrow, or that the person they're with right now is going to turn around and marry them. This was the kind of answer they wanted to hear. While the cards pointed out, this was, by the way, also someone who was questioning their sexuality a lot. It was someone who was bisexual, and basically was a man who tended to date other men who were promiscuous. And I said, well, the cards, interestingly enough, are saying that long term you'll probably meet a woman, because there were like all these divine feminine cards popping out, and I was like, I cannot help but feel it. Like I don't care if you're gay, you want to be gay, be happy. But the cards keep saying one day you will meet a woman that will be your partner, and I have no personal interest in that. The cards are telling me that, and it's going to be A, in a long time. B, you're going to have to question yourself a lot to be able to mature into that. That's kind of what I saw. And my friend who was so hung up on someone of the same gender at the time did not want to hear that at all. So like don't ask the cards if you don't want to know the answer, basically. And don't blame the reader who has no personal interest in however your life goes, because they don't care. At least I don't. I don't tell people how their life should go. Don't blame the reader for the information that the cards give. Don't shoot the messenger, in a way. I think that was a very detailed answer to your question, Kazri. Like it should pretty much.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing that. I'll remind everybody that after I guess we'll do as many cards as we do. We got a 15-minute late start, so are we going to kind of go till for another like half an hour? We haven't done too many cards. Maybe we'll do another one or two before some mini readings. No one has asked anything in the chat yet, but I'll encourage you. That's part of why I asked that question. What sort of questions are good? Yes, no questions are not what tarot is. So yeah, keeping something in mind, and yeah, it's interesting. Yeah. So shall we do another card or two, or should we go?
No, let's show me the cards. Like show me how many do we have left in the row? Because I want to finish the row today. We'll see how that goes.
Let's see.
So we have Justice. Some of them I'm seeing.
Yeah, Justice, Hangman.
Death. Is there something else after Death? Yeah, there's Temperance. Yeah, it's quite a lot. Well, I will see how that goes, but I'm doing Justice for sure, and the rest, we'll see. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, yeah, and I'm okay. I think, if it takes us, multiple weeks to continue on, I think it's still
that's
good.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm not in a rush.
Yeah, me neither. It's best to do it. Well, it's best to just do it, thoroughly rather than rush it. And accuracy is what matters. Anyway, so yes, with the Wheel of Fortune, we started a new cycle. Whether we understand it or whether we reject into it or not, it's gonna happen either way. And here in Justice, we again descend into the realm of the moon because it's an 11-2. But an 11-2 is even more, divinely deep spiritually than the pure 2. And if you remember well from the previous video, the 2 that we had in the previous row was the High Priestess, the beginning of the intuitive feminine. And as you can see, there's a certain duality to both the 2 here and then the card we have right now, which is Justice, where she has a scale and the sword. And again, there is a very clear symmetry to those cards where they are polarized, as opposed to the Hermit, which is kind of alone, or things like the Wheel of Fortune, where the wheel is kind of has a lot of elements around it. But yeah, the Justice card again has this duality as as the 11-2 number. So the Justice basically is the more evolved form of the High Priestess, where the High Priestess is more intuitive, but she's not judgmental, as in she interprets the symbols correctly, but there is no judgment. It's more like reading. So it's a bit like reading cards where, well, this is the card that popped out, but I'm not judging the morality of it. Justice is kind of more moral based on the Wheel of Fortune. Justice is what interprets the Wheel of Fortune. It tells you, well, this is the karma that you got because this is what you've done. So justice is where the judgment is being passed on depending on your past actions. And that is actually, there's because of the scale, which represents Libra, and the fairness and the sword, it represents that actually in justice there is no personal motivations. It's actually just the definition of what you reap, what you sow. And that is initiated in the Wheel of Fortune, but it is executed in the Justice card. So, it's kind of like with our human, or at least the idea of what our human justice system should be. You kill someone, you go to jail because you killed them, not because the judge wants to see you in jail, right? Like, not unless they're corrupt, but you see my point. In an ideal world, the perfect justice system would be that you kind of just pay for the consequences of your own actions. And that can be for better or for worse. So let's say that you're asking for a promotion, a work situation, and you're asking, will I get that promotion? So the Justice card will mean, well, you will get the promotion that you deserve based on how well you've been working. So if you slack off and make your coworkers do a lot for you, then you're probably not going to get promoted. But if you were working really hard and you were feeling maybe underappreciated, then the Justice card can indicate, for example, that you will get the promotion that you deserve and that you worked for. And in a way, also here, justice is about being fine and being in line with these consequences. Because while in the Wheel of Fortune we have confusion, in a way justice represents clarity. Why? Because ultimately the results, the fruits of our actions always give us the answer as to the why and the cause of any question we might ask. So let's say that the Wheel of Fortune is that stage where we're confused in our head because maybe, I don't know, our partner leaves us, right? You're like, oh my God, she left me. But in justice is where you sit down and it's like, well, maybe she left me because I've been an asshole to her their whole relationship. So ultimately she left. So maybe she had a reason, This is kind of the difference between these two cards. There is that judgment that's being passed on. Well, in the Wheel of Fortune, we may still be in a state of shock depending on our state of spiritual evolution. And because the human self, also even the body itself needs to adjust to change. By justice, we kind of cut our losses, thus the sword, and we move on. Because, the fun part about the card is that there is no judgment because we can say, look, I messed up and I'm going to do better. So even if you do mess up, if you did mess up, the Justice card kind of shows you that you should just accept what happened and learn from it for the next cycle, for the future. And a bit of a spoiler, that's why when we move on from the Justice to the Hanged Man is showing us that different perspective where the next card after is about, well, you're looking at all the things from the previous cycle that you messed up on from a different angle to do them better next time. So it's in a way, it's a card of wisdom and enlightenment that comes from wanting to have that wisdom of fixing what we did not do well around the first time. And now, if you think about it, your human life is not black and white, right? You're not perfect, but you're not the devil either. So there are some things that you're gonna do well, some things you're not gonna do well because you are just human and you are bound to, mess up sometimes, right? So this is an occasion for you to kind of just, approach it coolly and rationally, and might not kind of have a to-do list of the things that I could improve in the next cycle. So justice in a way represents having a cool head and face of your own mistakes and the ability to do that, and of your own human imperfection. And sometimes they can be a small thing, sometimes they can be a bigger thing, and also the acceptance of loss in a way, So let's say that, I don't know, you plan your monthly budget and you say, well, shit, I have got too much takeout last month and I should limit that this month. But it doesn't mean that you should, kill yourself for getting too much takeout. It just means that you want to do better next month, right? It's this kind of vibration. And those who get into a lot of emotions about that means that they haven't really accepted themselves and their own nature, their own soul nature, and their own mistakes, which is they have a problem with the Wheel of Fortune stage too. Because, sometimes our soul incarnates to make some mistakes, to learn certain things because they're new to them. Mistakes are a part of our soul journey, human soul journey. We have to embrace them and learn from them. Of course, it depends how far you go. Like, there's a mistake of, again, getting too much takeout. There's a mistake of, I don't know, murder. So it depends on how far, you take it, right? But still, it's about approaching all of this equally with a cool head and being able to redeem ourselves through the willingness to learn, where the learning stage, again, is in the next Hangman card. So if you get the Justice card in reverse, it may show that you are struggling to accept the consequence of your own actions. You don't want to face it. You don't want to face that shit left you because you're an asshole. You are just saying, oh, God hates me, You don't, face the... you don't want to face up to the consequence of your own results caused by your own initiation. Or the other interpretation can be, if it's mixed with other cards, is that you kind of are punishing yourself too hard for it, that you don't have the cool head that's necessary here for you to be able to learn and move on from this card, just move on as a wiser person, not as someone who beats themselves up for every stumble across the way. And you told Casri to make space for you, so I am, because I'm ready to move on to the next card. Are you?
Thank you. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I have anything to say right this second about that. So we will transition on and maybe do the Hanged Man and then maybe some readings. I mean, I have an unlimited evening. I could be on. I know it takes you a lot of energy to do this. So as a support person here, I am happy to just go however long you want to go. But
well, I will look how I will see how I feel. For now, I'm still fresh. I love guacamole before this live stream, so I'm ready. I still have it in me, so I will see. Like, my idea was to finish the road today. I don't know if I'll manage to, and then do the reading. So I don't know if I'll manage that, but I will.
Yeah, I think that's.
I will try. I will see.
That's probably. Yeah, probably too many. And I was going to put it back in the chat again because we have some people watching. It's hard to know when. It's fine that people don't check in, but if people don't check in, I don't know if it's the same people that have been watching the whole time or if it's different people. So just letting whoever's watching know that we're getting towards the point, the end of the stream. And so soon we will be going to some mini readings. And if you would like a mini reading, then you would need to put your question in the chat. Otherwise, and probably in addition, it's maybe my gift for hosting this is I get to have a reading usually first, and then we read other people if we have other questions as well. But let's go on to the Hanged Man.
Yes. So as I pointed out before while talking about the Justice card, the Hangman is a consequence of your open-mindedness that you should acquire if you have done the Justice card correctly. The cool-headedness in face of your own mistakes, because the Hangman, like I said, is quite literally about having a different perspective of your event so far. So very often when we start a new cycle in tarot, we don't start a new cycle, aka we completely burn bridges and look at something new. It's more about our vision, the way that we see things anew. And it's something that the universe, God, that goes into human form will do, because ultimately the universe is just one infinite place, and the universe knows that. So different situations, physical manifestations, are really just an excuse for that to manifest differently, so that we can have different experiences and feel and see things differently. This is the point of physical, is to stimulate our perception, our experience, right? So as you can see, some people, they're like, "Oh, the Hangman, you're gonna get hung and punished." Not at all. Look at this guy. Like, does he look like miserable, like Jesus on the cross? No, he's like kind of smiling, kind of dancing with his legs, kind of looking carefree, wearing some sort of ballet shoes, and he has like an aura around his head, which indicates a saint, right? Normally, saints are the one portrayed with, it's called aureola, or angels are portrayed this way, right? And he looks quite carefree and positive. And what is more, look at all the vines on the cross, there's like flowers blooming. And by the way, for those who don't know, because there is very serious imagery in the Catholic Church and in the world in general that shows that the cross should be like You know, I'm going to use 2 tarot cards to show that the cross is. I don't need this one. It's an introductory one. That the cross should be like this, basically in the middle, right? But in fact, as you can see on the Hangman card, historically, when they actually used to use crossing as a form of punishment, you know, by law, the cross was more like this. Like there was. It was more like a T letter, and if you go back to the Hangman card, you can see that actually this is what he is on. That he is actually on one of those things they were used to give the death penalty, and you can see that there's nothing poking out on the top. This is the actual historically accurate form of how people used to be crucified, and they also used to be crucified upside down too. This is also accurate. So the whole thing with Jesus on the cross was basically like twisted. Historically accurately, Jesus would be hung like this, exactly like this guy here, upside down, only not in such a fancy attire, but you see my point. But so you can see that there is still the term of crucifixion, where this is actually us, you know, paying for the mistakes that justice has passed sentence on, and that can be like as it's small or it can be big. But the way that he is accepting that with this blissful face shows the meaning behind it, because the Hangman, as a card number 12, is ruled by which goes down to 3, is a card ruled by Jupiter, and Jupiter rules enlightenment, wisdom, and happiness. So it's all about being able to derive the wisdom from our mistakes, which is why it connects so closely to the justice card. It's about, let's say that you let's say you killed someone and you felt really entitled to kill someone, right? So in the Hangman, you're like, well, you know, maybe the guy I killed had a brother that really loved him, and I really hurt the brother by killing him, so I shouldn't have done that. You know, this is the kind of wisdom that you get here, right? That when you do something that it impacts other people, other situations, there are consequences to your actions, and not only you have to pay for that by, you know, hanging, but the point of the hanging is not just, you know, to eliminate you, it's to force understanding, right? Like, let's say that a parent, you know, grounds you when you know, they catch you smoking when you're 13. It's way too early, right? They don't want to do it because they want to make you miserable. They do it because they hope that you'll stop smoking. This is their idea. They hope you will understand, which is futile, because if you're 13, you won't, probably until you're 30 and you start coughing, and then you see, oh, maybe it wasn't such a good idea 17 years ago. But, you know, basically it indicates that understanding and being able to derive joy or even playful attitude from understanding of the consequences of our actions, even if they're difficult. So again, I'm gonna, you know, go back to the story I told you about my employment history, that the Hangman stage would be the stage where I understood, well, you know, it was not a nice experience in my previous job, but the point of this was for me to derive wisdom that, you know, that capitalism sucks and that my calling in life is bigger than that, you know, and so I should happily let go of that and change my life. So when this kind of card shows in the reading, and let's say maybe going through a breakup, you know, this card is encouraging you to say, well, maybe he just wasn't good enough for me and we broke up and it's for the better, you know, is this kind of attitude. So when that card is in an upright position, I know it makes it look kind of funny because then the man is kind of standing, right? That indicates your unwillingness to look at things from a different point of view. You're not willing to change your mind. You're just still stuck on the opinion that got you on that cross in the first place. You don't want to, you don't want to expand your vision. You are afraid of, looking at life from a new perspective, depending on the situation. Or maybe the other meaning that I've seen happen is that you adjust your opinion to other people too much. That this is also somebody who can be kind of waffling in their life principles, that they, whoever says something, that they start following what the other person is saying, as in, that, especially I've seen that if it appears together with the devil card, when the devil kind of represents control, that this is basically someone who changes their perspective whenever someone tells them what to think. So there can be in reverse, it can show a lack of independent free thinking, because notice that the hangman that's upright, this is someone who, ironically enough, he looks for a new perspective, but he knows his own mind. His new perspective comes from his own observation and his own wisdom. He's not around him. There's no one around him. He's not asking anyone. He's thinking on the cross himself, So the problem with the reverse hangman might be, again, the problem with introspection and your own perspective. Like, you can't just change your mind because mom told you to. You have to really understand that was a valid thing, that experience shows you to be true. So yeah, this is how it can go when the card is reversed. And again, it will all depend on the situation, on the context, how it goes. Anyway, I'm ready to move on to the next card. Are you guys ready?
Yeah, that sounds good. I don't have anything specific to say there.
Okay, well, the next card after the Hanged Man is Death, and Death is in number 13, which you cannot really see here, which some people associate with, unluck for a reason, as the third 13 goes down to a 4. And if you have 4 or 4 numerology, you know that the 4 is a very karmic number. In some cultures, you know, that's why the 13s and 4s are removed in elevators. In some countries, the 4 more in Asian culture, the 13 more in Western culture, because people believe it to be an unlucky number. Some people think that whenever they're passing the 4th floor, they're going to get killed or whatever, this kind of stuff. And the reason for such a fear here, because just like the emperor, which also dealt with logic and organization, that represents completely reorganizing our whole life based on the perception, the newly acquired perception that we got in the Hanged Man. So we changed our perspective. Okay, so to give you a quick example. So you're on Tinder, you met the wrong guy, and the Hanged Man is making you think, well, maybe it's not such a good thing to you meeting people casually because it doesn't end well for me. Just an example, maybe it's good for you. I'm not judging, just saying that an example. And so the death card would be you delete the Tinder profile. You deleting not because it's an impulse thing, but because you have come to a conclusion that something is not good for you, basically. So that represents the reorganization of our life with the new wisdom and principles in mind. And it can feel like that because when we are attached to something that's very deep, you know, when we have very deep-rooted perspective that maybe we should, I don't know, overcompensate in some way, and then we have the wisdom that we shouldn't do it anymore, then applying that in practice, there's hard work, you know. Just because we understand something conceptually and we agree with ourselves internally, philosophically, which the Hanged Man taught us, doesn't mean that it's going to be that easy for us to apply it in the present. Let's maybe use another example. Let's say that you tend to be like the kind of friend that helps everyone but never takes care of themselves. It was an issue that I had years ago before my spiritual journey. And as someone who has gone through the death stage, let me tell you, I have almost no friends left from that stage of my life. And I had to cut them all off and say, I had to tell them, look, I am not okay with the friendship of which you are the star and in which I don't exist. And we don't have a 50-50 area where I talk about me, you talk about you, and we kind of just, you know, go back and forth and both people are acknowledged in the friendship. And I would have to tell them I am not okay with that. And I had to cut off these friendships. And some people, they were persistent. They're like, oh, but I want you back, but I miss you, but you're wrong. And then you have to say, no, I'm right. This is the kind of person that you are. You don't acknowledge me, so it's not friendship. Bye. And this is hard because you might have been a friend with this person for 10 years. You have attachment to them, right? You have memories with them. You like them, you know. You may have kind of had them when you were going through some other stuff in your life that was painful, and you might have thought, oh, they were there for me during the time. And then you have to reevaluate it and really change your life. That's why people are scared of the death card, because it's about eradicating wrong attachments from our lives. And, you know, if the death card happens, that means that there's already a part of us, even if it's very subconscious, that has gone through the Hangman. We already know that something is wrong there, and that's why death falls on us. It's never without our subconscious permission. We always know that something is not okay. We always feel it somewhere ticking, you know. So, yeah, but again, the whole point of this is to reorganize and change your life after. If you look at the card of the imagery of death, this is, by the way, supposed to be some sort of a village where a lot of people have died, and there are some children left, some few remaining surviving civilians left. And the death, by the way, is on the horse. It's a messenger of death. So imagine a situation that, you know, there's some sort of old village and men used to go to war all the time historically, right? And they get a message back that the husband is not coming back from war because someone stabbed him with a sword. He's dead. So, or maybe that many men haven't come back because many died in war, like the whole army lost, right? So what's going to happen? Some of them, the men probably had some sort of functions in the village. They were, you know, the mayor, the secretary of the treasury. So they had some functions socially in that town. The town has to reorganize the whole social structure as a result of this death. So death rules not only the death itself, because the death itself is it's a split second, it's a moment. It rules the whole reorganization that you have to do in your life as a result of that sudden change, right? Or maybe like even if someone dies in your personal life, you have to, like, I don't know, sell their belongings or do something with them, whatever you deem appropriate, right? You have to deal with the physical aspect of someone's passing, right? And that's why basically you have to look, you know, further and think of that as in a way a very physical card, just like the Emperor being so logical and structured and organized, because there's a lot of, well, if you never develop with anyone's passing, then you won't know, but there's like a lot of physical work that comes with transformation that people don't talk about. That's why the 8th house is the polarity of the 2nd house in astrology, which is so physical and money oriented, because there's a lot of physical responsibility that always falls on you in such moments. I'm sorry, remember this started big. We have a comment from someone, and I don't know. I think that there's. Yeah, I think they're trying to ask about a no contact situation with somebody, and I think they just don't speak English. I think for once it's a legitimate question from a foreigner who just doesn't understand the language. So please try to speak English, whoever you are, because I don't understand. And okay, I'm gonna tell you just something that maybe you don't know. In tarot community on YouTube, one of the main questions or something that people love to ask and people make a lot of pick cards about this, is when there's most often a girl fighting over a guy and she's panicking because he's not replying to her text for 3 days, and of course every crush is the love of her life, and it's called no contact. And there are pick a card readings that say no contact, he didn't reply, will he reply, does he love you? And honestly, I find most of this to be so stupid, because most of these cases that you're gonna forget about the person. Like, how many of us actually ask ourselves this question about our actual soulmate, right? Like, very most often it's, you know, a crush or something stupid. So yeah, it has somehow become a phrasing on YouTube. But I don't know, maybe the person in the comments is different. You never know, you know. Sometimes that's how it is. And, you know, I've gone through this myself. Like, before I got married to my husband, we had a bit of a rough patch, you know, before we got there. And I've been there for serious, you know, and given the fact that I married the guy, it was serious in my case. But I know how that can feel when it's real and painful. So please try to rephrase your question more, the person in the comments, and try to do it more in English so we can actually give you an accurate reading, because I don't see a point in giving a reading in English to somebody who can't understand what I'm saying either, you know, kind of a problem. So yeah, please put more effort into your question if you want it answered. Hi, Manti. Use Google Translate if you have to, but, you know, it's just the way it is. Anyway, so what I did not talk about so far was the reversal of death. That when you have death in reverse showing up in your reading, that means that you might be feeling reluctant to deal with the consequences of some change. So let's say that subconsciously you already accepted that change needs to happen and that the thing fell on you, and then you just don't want to deal with the inevitable. Let's say that, I don't know, someone that you felt that she broke up with you, and your boyfriend broke up with you, and you're still wearing his t-shirt to sleep because you like how it smells. You know, some girls are like that. Like, you might find it funny, but it does happen, you know. And you can't let go. It's like, oh, I'm gonna get him back. This kind of situation. That's that in reverse, you know, the unwillingness to move on and deal with the consequences of having to move on, basically. And that can go from extreme pain, where sometimes denial is a way of coping, and, you know, I understand that some people may be like that, to situations that are very trivial, where someone's just being immature. You can be this way either way, right? And the other thing that may also mean with that in reverse is that you are over focusing on the negative aspect of your life, because, you know, life is about balance. So there's always something that we're letting go of. We're always cleaning up something. We're always changing something. But at the same time, we also have to let ourselves learn new things in life. We have to make space for the new while we're cleaning out the old. And sometimes it can also indicate with death in reverse that you are so traumatized and you had like so many experiences that you're completely closed off to any novelty whatsoever. And you're just so overburdened thinking, no, I'm still healing from that last thing, when it's time for you to move on. Actually, that might mean that, depending on the cards that you get. Let's say you would get that in reverse with a very positive relationship card, and that might mean that a new person is trying to enter your life, and you should be open to them, but you're still stuck on the fact that you were hurt with somebody else 10 years ago, and you don't want to let go of that, so you're not opening your heart to a new situation, and that can be a problem. So another expression of that in reverse is like, you know, not moving on enough or moving on for too long. Anyway, I myself am ready to move on to the next card, Kesri, so it's up to you.
That sounds like a fine thing to do. Death then goes to, even though it is interesting on the card, I see too, I do not see a third line. I know we've, you know, the resolution of the card is what it is, but it is interesting because over here, you know, I see XII, which is 12. And then over here, I don't see that second line, but I believe it's supposed to be there because that is supposed to be the card 13.
It's poor pixelation, I can tell you, because I've seen other like more high density, like higher, you know, resolution images, and definitely it should be there. You know, like I just Googled it and I found another card. You can see it very, very clearly. Actually, that it's, you know, that it's that the tree is there basically. So yeah, the image is. Yeah. Yes, so I did the reversal. Yes, we're moving on to Temperance, which is number 14, which goes down to 5, which is ruled by Mercury. And as you can see, the key is that the last one? Is that the last one in the row?
It's the last one in the row, and I was zooming out so we could see that 5, the Hierophant, is sort of what it echoes back to.
Yes, because it's the other expression of the cycle where we move on from the 4 to a 5. When in the 4 we have you know, we organize ourselves in a big way, and with Temperance we are finding ways to reconcile the past, the future, and the present, which is why the Temperance kind of has these 2 cups pouring into each other. And you can see the funny thing that the water does, that the water kind of becomes like, looks like a stream. It doesn't look like even a drop is spilling, right? And there is like a very heavy image of purity here, even though it's Mercury card of reconciling two oppositions, and the figure that's holding the cup is kind of angelic, you know. So this basically indicates, after that comes you know, balance, because temperance means balance ultimately, and Mercury is also about balancing opposites. So in a way, just because some part of something in your life died, that doesn't mean that your whole life is over. And so it's okay to take some good things from the past and mix them with the element of the new. And the point of the cleanup was to reorganize them, not to, you know, burn everything to the ground, but to take what's left of the past that is good and that is worthy, and mix it with the new things that you're going to have to use to replace the ones that died. And, you know, in a way, it encourages a certain level of objectivity, because Mercury is a very objective card, and serenity in face of this kind of duality, you know. Like, I'm just thinking of the kind of example that I've seen in my life. Sometimes when, you know, something in your life changes, you may feel that you own some items that remind you of the past that has already gone. But in the way, these items still have a functional use and meaning, so you don't necessarily get rid of them straight away just because something changed, right? You keep them because they have their use, and at the same time you get, you know, new ones, right? And some people, they really have this extreme attitude where they kind of say, no, I have to get rid of everything, and they just abandon reason and logic, and they end up discarding things that could still be of value. So it just shows us that even after death, even in loss, you should preserve objectivity when it comes to what actually is a working force in your life. And the, you know, the angelic piece of the face indicates that having that positive attitude towards, you know, even the aftermath of loss allows you to fully enjoy the novelty of things while still being able to enjoy the worthy things that have still stayed with you. So let's use the death scenario, where here you have some sort of a village where probably you lost the husband, right, and everything. But let's say you still have 2 children, right, and you had them when the husband was there, and after he's dead, you still have them. That doesn't mean that you should, you know, toss the kids to the street because they remind you of your husband. And this is something you hear very often, right? That something that the people that die, they say that when they look at the face of a child after the other parent died, they remind them of the deceased spouse, and it's very hard for them to look at them. And temperance says, well, no, you shouldn't do that, because your kids are, you know, they're still something of value. They're people of value to you. You love them. And so you may have to accommodate them in a new reality without the other parent, but you should still love them. You should still make space for those worthwhile things that remain in your life. So again, like I said, it's about allowing new things to blossom. You see, if there are even these little flowers on the image, that there's new life that's still flowing, even if some things have to die. That's why the other thing I'm thinking of is that, you know, whenever there is a person that dies on this earth, there's always a new person born at the same time. And death is a continuous cycle of death and rebirth. And this angel holding these 2 cups shows that death and rebirth, they kind of always flow into each other, and they flow together. There's no separation between them. They are an inevitable conclusion of the same cycle. There's an infinite symbol to them, you know. The water here symbolizes infinity. And you can kind of see also the sun in the background, like the new dome that kind of pops up there. And it takes time, you know, to grieve certain things and to move on. But ultimately, you know, there's always going to be a new cycle that's going to be invited into your life. So when you have the temperance here in reverse, there may be, again, someone who is stuck in that stage. They don't want to think about new beginnings. But the card in reverse, it says that, well, it's high time to think about those new beginnings in your life and invite hope. And the other indication here can be that you struggle to reconcile the new things that you have and the things they had from the past. So maybe you draw a very firm line in between them. So it's quite possible that maybe, you know, I have seen people ask this, had this card in social context. And these are people who, with a particular client that I had, they met new friends and they struggled to introduce their new friends to their old friends. Because some of the friends they had, they were like from primary school, and then they went to college and they met new friends, and they wanted to like all hang out together on New Year's Eve or some like big gathering. And they had a hard time doing that because they're like, what if my new friends don't like the old friends? And there was also some sort of romantic situation involved with this client. I don't remember because I have so many clients, but just made me think of this immediately. You know, this situation was just so perfect that there may be even if you have turnover, then you leave, then you may struggle to kind of be able to blend opposites the way Mercury demands you to do in this card. And there may be the other struggling expression of this Temperance card. But then if you have a partner, you're just worried about something, and you have a question that the answer is, well, these two opposites can be reconciled, and you will be fine ultimately. So with the lack of reversal, there's no denial. There is just more like an open-minded question. Anyway, we have come to the end of the row, and that was the goal that I had for today. So I think we can move on to the mini readings now, unless you have some more questions, Kazri.
No, but I was going to make. I'm glad you answered the question of. That would be a sun rising in the background, not setting, and because it kind of is happening over a mountain, it looks like maybe or something. It wasn't even clear to me if it was maybe like something, but if it was a volcano exploding, that would not be yellow usually. So that probably is a sun rising. And then the only other thing I noticed is that the wings of is that sort of Mercury or the figure are dark and do like encompass sort of bringing of the energy of the death card. So it's sort of like usually a figure like this might have white wings, and so it doesn't have white wings, which is another like balance of, yes, it's in a white robe, but it has red and black and orange wings.
That is a very good point, Kazri, because the point is that the person is still healing. That's exactly it. And that's why the sun is on the horizon, not right above us, because there is still a way to go there. And you can see that there is like a path on this mountain. In these, we have to climb that path to get to that sunrise. That it takes time, but you can see that it's in front of you. So there is motivation and hope in that balance. And yeah, these things, they're still kind of burned. They're healing. They're regenerating. And yeah, that's why also it's a balancing healing card, basically, because it is healing to introduce some new things into your life while some old things still can matter to you at the same time. So it's like a bridge between the peace that you find in the old things that still comfort your heart and the new things that excite you just enough to soothe you at the same time. So yeah, very good points, Kazri. I agree.
Well, we do have a couple of people watching, and but nobody's asked a question yet. So I don't know if it's new or old people or the same people. I guess old people would be the same people. If you have a tarot question, which would be a not a yes/no question, but a tell me about something question, we could maybe do you next. I've done what I can to wrangle a question. And I guess it depends on how narrow I should be. And so I'm going to ramble for a little bit, and then you'll help me figure out what my question is. In some ways, my question could be about my YouTube channel, because there's different aspects going on, and the anti-Scientology stuff is something that I think about getting into, but I don't know. And then there's another piece. So one of my questions would be, tell me about my channel. And another one would be, there's the YouTube, but then there's my consulting business and products, and then there's self-care, and then there's the property thing. And like, of all the things that are going on, where do I focus or whatever? But is that too big of a question? Should I keep it just to YouTube channel, or are cards jumping out all over the place?
No, the cards are speaking. Don't worry, and I'll ask you questions as we're going. So you're basically lacking direction, is what you want. Is what you're saying, right?
Yeah, I feel like I'm lacking direction is a good way to put that, I guess.
Well, it's very ironic because at the bottom of the deck, we actually got the death card, which we just analyzed. So you know what that means, that basically there are some things that you're going to have to change. And I'm going to tell you what actually caught my attention as you start to speak. Sometimes I don't know if this is reversed or straight. Okay. And the other card that, caught my attention was that we got the sun in reverse. Now, we didn't analyze the sun yet because it's number 19, so it's going to be next week. But 19 is a number 1 card. So, well, I don't want to spoil too much because there's a continuum. So basically what you have to look at with the reversal here is that some of the things that you are doing, whether that's on the channel or the consulting business, are not in alignment with what your soul would like to do. So basically the confusion you're feeling, what you're experiencing, is linked to the fact that some elements of your businesses or whatever endeavors you have may be inauthentic. And this is something that's very easy to do because look, how many of us can really say that we really fully know and love ourselves? Like, it's just, the general idea may be correct, but some of the forms of how you're doing it may be something that are not really fully what would make you the most happy long term when you're on your deathbed saying, okay, I've done this well, Like, to give you also an example, from a personal standpoint, when I started to really plug the courage to put myself out there with my wisdom, which I feel like honestly have only done in fragments, because like this is what I'm doing right now, just the beginning, because I was so much more strong on study and analysis than actually expressing that and having that capitalized on. Like, I bet there are some people on the channels that don't have, to say immodestly, don't have half my wisdom, but they're already speaking up, so they have more success because they are more extroverted about it, right? And one of the things that I did was participate in a lot of groups where I would try to, answer people's questions, and I had a lot of backlash for that because the host felt like I was taking space too much, which wasn't my intention. It just happened naturally as the facts spilled out of me. So basically, just that I speak out to people was not a problem. It was the fact that I should focus more on, having a platform where I'm more the center of things, so I can actually have that space to do it freely instead of making other people unwillingly feel like they are they're being overshadowed, which again happened by accident. It wasn't my intention whatsoever. But that means that basically the me kind of hiding in an intimacy of a group was a bad idea for me to express my practice. But it doesn't mean that my gifts were wrong. It just means that the form I was using them in was not correct. And this is kind of what the Sun card in reverse is that doesn't mean that your channel is bad, but maybe some elements on your channel are something that you don't want to do. I will look at the rest of the cards to tell you what that is, but this is the general idea because it's a Major Arcana card. And it was the one that caught my attention straight away. And it's the same with the consulting business. It doesn't mean that the whole thing should go, go by. It just means that maybe there are some people that you work with, some small things that you don't like, that are not fully what your soul would like to do. And the other card, the card that basically kind of stalks you every time I read for you, is the Queen of Cups, and you always get upright. So that means that you actually emotionally will know exactly what makes you feel good. So on this path of self-discovery, you have a very good emotional compass that will be able to tell you precisely what makes you feel fulfilled while you do what you do. But the Queen of Cups also is an authoritative feminine figure. So in a way, maybe in some instances, you may not fully appreciate your gifts in that area, as in you take your own emotional authority for granted, and this may be the part of you that is not authentic. Maybe there is some element of making yourself small, and that can be the reason why for your dissatisfaction. And for you, actually, does not come from a place of ego, because the Queen is not someone who operates from the ego. She is someone that operates from pure heart-centered authority. Actually, even the fun fact, the Queen of Cups on this card, she's kind of blind, and you can see that what's open, like what's showing is her heart chakra, like her tits, to say that plainly. This is how she's dressed. Her intuition and her emotions are the ones leading her, and so there's a certain like accuracy to your emotional vision that you have, and you may not believe in yourself, thinking, oh, I'm imagining things. Is this time of the month? I'm not right. So you may kind of like question yourself and not take yourself fully as seriously emotionally as you should do that, in fact. And as a result, you end up not fully in the position, that is that you're deserving of. And that can long-term cause dissatisfaction in such a way that you feel bad because you ended up making yourself feel small, but you can't lie to yourself, so you end up being, in a way, self-sabotaging by accident, because you downplay yourself so people can do it for you. Like, other people cannot, take out your inner shine and emotional authority for you. Only you can do that for yourself. And it's very funny because the other Major Arcana card we got that we still didn't analyze, we're going to do it next week, is the Moon. And the Moon comes right before the Sun. So that indicates that, I think it shows me a bit of the reason for why the Sun happened in reverse, because basically got stuck at the see, this is like typical of what it's such a nice example for the videos. When one card shows upright and then you have the card that's right next to it in reverse, it shows this is where you got stuck. So in a way, it shows me that you work through the Moon stage. You work through your subconscious, and I think it's something that's linked to you having the 12th house stellium, that you do have the natural ability, and together, especially with the Queen of Cups, you do have a natural talent to know certain things emotionally and from a spiritual standpoint, but then you get stuck when it comes to expressing it externally, the Sun card. So it's more about breaking through the barrier. Like, you might feel like you have more confidence when you're alone in your room or your house and no one talks to you, and then you have to go out and express that, and you're like, oh shit, and the stage fright element can be quite strong, and you end up not fully being yourself because of that lack of consciousness. So this actually advises you to sit by yourself for a bit more with your emotions and ask yourself about how you feel about those things, and then reconsider how you show up externally as a result of those feelings. Actually, the support system here is pretty strong because all it requires for you is to play on the strengths you already have. You will know after you rethink that. After you meditate on those things, you will know you have the gift to be able to do it well. Like some people have blocks with meditation and whatever, and you don't. This shows that if you just think it through, you will know what action to take. But this also indicates that we got some minor cards to that. This also indicates that part of the reason why you may be feeling unsure is that you are just simply new at certain endeavors, because we got a page of wands, and pages are the students of tarot. They are kind of when we start doing something. It's the very initial stage, and the wands is something you're passionate about. So it's like you started a project or you started something that you feel passionate about, maybe it's a YouTube channel, and you're new at it and you're still learning, but the enthusiasm is still going because it's not reversed, it's upright. So that means that partially you may have to accept that your confusion comes from still being a newbie, basically, and that with experience will come confidence. So it's good to make sure that go ahead.
I was going to say that feels like it speaks to the anti-Scientology stuff in the sense that I am, my heart is very much in it. It's exciting that it's the transformation is happening, because it's just such a controlling, abusive situation, and I really want to be involved, and yet that's when I hear new, like I think of myself as being new to that community because I still haven't quite. I'm not. I don't do a lot of content because I have yet to connect with another creator to, because it's better. It's easier for me to talk about. I mean, I have done a little bit of content where it's just me talking because I have information, I know things, and yet it feels like the next step is to engage with other people that either are ex-Scientologists or, have other channels, in order for me to then be recognized and acknowledged as somebody that has something to offer to the community and find my place and have that confidence. And I don't have any of that yet because that hasn't happened. And I'm not, then too, I get befuddled because I'm like, well, is that even a thing? Like, maybe that's not even what I'm supposed to be doing. Maybe I'm supposed to be doing other things. And two, only I have the answer. I want an external answer because that feels like it would be easy. And I think if I heard an external answer that I recognize as true, I would recognize it. But really, I'm the person who knows what I'm supposed to do, right? That's the only person that's going to know it.
I'm sorry I can help you with the whole Scientology stuff because I know nothing about it. Like, I'm not even making any comments because this is so little I know about it. I just think that we shouldn't, talk about things that we have no interest or experience in. So I just, I'm not going to say a word because I just, I don't want to be running my mouth as an uninformed person, because I just know like zero about it. Like, if I could help you, I would like have a whole other, YouTube session with you about this. But I'm sure there is someone out there who, who knows even more than you about it, and they can help you with that,
Yeah. And I'm in an interesting place because I do, I work with you and Andy and who else has been on the channel? And then Jordan and Jonah, who we talk about consciousness. So I know things, and I have people that I work with in the other areas, but I don't have somebody to work with in that area yet. So if anybody, if anybody's watching and wants to, because I just kind of keep putting that out of like, I'd be happy to, because I think it starts with a conversation. It doesn't start with like going on a live necessarily. You have to start with a conversation to understand. That, but too, I guess time will tell. And do you have more to?
Yes, I'm not finished, but I wanted to give you space too. I also wanted to say that, the other issue is that from what I know, the little note that I know is that the subject is quite controversial. So you may have to not only find those that know something, but those who are willing to speak up about it. Because some people are going to like lurk more on Reddit. I feel this kind of subject, they're going to write about it, but not go on YouTube to publicly, endorse it, given the fact that there are many people that are, influential and famous that are, part of that particular, line of thought. And
and I guess I could insert just a little bit more, which is, yes, there is, and I think I'm relatively comfortable with the idea of doing something online. There's another like in person, like there is an org in Portland, and nobody's there right now. In other cities, in LA, in Clearwater, Florida, and in Austin, there's people on the street like filming, and then other people gather, and there's sort of safety in numbers, but there's violence happening. There was a person who was attacked within the last week, a person named creator named Confident Chris, walking by himself at that point in LA late at night in the dark, in the rain, and was beat up and had to go to the hospital. I mean, he's okay now, but he was traumatized. He was injured. They literally like knocked out one of his teeth. So it's scary. It's like that's, I'm not a warrior. I don't want to go beat people up over this. So yeah, part of me is like wanting to do that and reaching out to other people. And locally, actually, I know of a couple of other creators who are in the area, one of whom I've had a little contact with, one I've had no contact with. They're both women. So I think 3 of us together would be safe, but ultimately having some gender difference, having some physically larger, stronger, younger people would be better. But anyway, I went off on all that. That's part of what goes on in that realm, is the question of, should I take my camera down and start doing that? And my feeling is that I'm not comfortable doing that. So
yeah. Well, again, some of the cards said sit by yourself and meditate on this more before taking any action. But to read more cards for you, first of all,
yes.
You have to be really careful who you work with, and I think it's not just the whole Scientology stuff, because like I said, I know nothing about it, but just the whole channel. Like, you have to be really careful with the people that you cooperate with, because you can have a tendency to attract people who basically don't cooperate on a fair basis, but may simply want something from you, and they may use you to that end, because there's the tendency of being locked away, with like basically having partners in the situation that are locked away in such a way that they are not fully open to the same ideas as you are. Like, basically not everyone you're gonna work with is gonna be like that, and they may be the same with the whole Scientology thing, that you may actually also eat some opposition to people that may just be hesitant to speak up on the subject. So yeah, it's something you're gonna have to count with, that it's just going to happen, because the subject that you have picked is just gonna ruffle some feathers, and the reason for that is that you have gotten a lot of source cards. So basically, when you do this, you will meet opposition. If you touch this particular can of worms, you will just meet people who will, like, like we thought that the couple of haters here today who are very random was something, but it's gonna be more than that if you go towards. I think that's so controversial, and you have to be careful, because you might feel like temporary. Yes, the thing is that it might erupt after a while, because of the kind of cards that we got, which indicate long-term situations, that it might be harder at the beginning, but it might become better long-term, because we got the card of swords that was more painful was with a lesser number. So it's like, let's say you start that and you get a lot of haters, but a year down the line, you actually have a solid community of people who actually agree with you. That's how this can work. That you have to be ready to meet initial opposition if you're going to do this. You have to be ready to have some setbacks, and it's just not going to be that easy. But if you really believe in it, again, that's why it says meditate, to see if you really in your heart believe in it. If you stick to it over time, this sorrow will end ultimately, like at the end of the difficult cycle. And I'm just thinking of, also my situation, how I've been doing things on social media for like 5 years now. And, I really like relinquished, other things that I could be doing, because I believe in it so strongly, despite, not really being super famous or anything, but I just, can't stop being who I am, right? So it's that kind of endurance that if you really believe in your heart that what you're doing is right and that it has merit, then ultimately it will pay off. Like, at the beginning when I started my channel and I was trying to film by myself with like an old shitty camera that I don't have anymore because it was just so poor. One of the first comments that I got is that, my ego is too big for just appearing on YouTube. And did I stop, publishing content on all my platforms? No, I didn't, like I have so many of them. But that's because, you always get some people at the beginning who are just, mean, especially when you're doing spiritual stuff. Some people think that, you're delusional because you're into spirituality, right? There's like a lot of opposition with those subjects. Always people they're judgmental, because you don't make content about food or travel. So there's something wrong with you, basically, right? This is how these things work. And but this says that there will be a long-term payoff for you, even if you're ready for some emotional sacrifices on the way, basically. So it basically, I would say that it tells you that you shouldn't give up, but it's just not going to be an easy journey, basically. And still, when it comes to details of it, you should sit with yourself and like tweak the whole knickknacks of it. And yeah, we have one more card, and this indicates that you shouldn't let these losses bring you down, because ultimately you might look at this and you might think, oh shit, I've had a falling out with this person, and they don't like me, over me start to post this content, and you might like feel the temptation to go down in the dumps over it, right? And this card is telling you not to even more these losses too hard, because there's a big chance that, let's say that someone has a problem with you for a certain kind of content that you do, right? But then they see that your channel grows big and suddenly they're like, oh, I'm your friend again. So don't even take this supposition that seriously, because it will all turn back around. I wish I could show you, like when we do the Minor Arcana videos, you will see in the original, this is just my set, but in the original Five of Cups, it shows a woman that's crying over some of the cups being spilled while she still has some. And this card is in reverse, which shows that you shouldn't even waste time on crying over any losses that you have on the way, because ultimately you're not going to lose anything meaningful, and it's going to be worth it. Like, I'm just, again, to give you a more comparable example, when I went into spirituality, I lost some friends that told me that I'm wasting my life because I don't want to work in a corporation and that I'm being unrealistic. And I have met so many new people, you included, after that, who, like, in Portland is like a whole new world where people like are even more, abstract than I am, because actually I'm pretty substantial. I have like a lot of knowledge that I've studied, and some people that they don't care, they live in a different dimension. And, some of the art they create as a result of it is so beautiful. Like, the art in the sanctum is breathtaking, it's just so pretty. And, like, why do I need to hold on to someone who, who is narrow-minded and locked in the world of just technology and no deeper perspective, when there are so many people in the world who are going to be open-minded to what I do, right? So it's this kind of loss, like it's a loss that if you lose something, it's not even worth looking at, basically. So don't get too emotional about it, because this indicates they have a big heart and you might take every slight. It's like, oh my God, something's wrong with me. But sometimes it's not you who's the problem, it's them, basically. And some people are just not even worth crying over, basically. This is what this says. So some opposition you may get maybe from trolls, some maybe from people in your personal life. But again, those who are meant to stay with you through this journey, they will support you, and they won't have a problem with you being who you are. And if someone does, you don't need them, basically. And I think this also may indicate that there's a fear of you thinking what people will say about you once you do certain things. And there is always a fear, because once we put ourselves online and we expose ourselves big time, and we stake a claim, we come out with who we are, and there's a YouTube channel, and this channel is about everything I believe in. I speak about what's happening in my life, about what my abstract beliefs are. And then let's say that you get bigger, and everyone that you've ever met can see who you are right now, including your third grade teacher. And then you think, oh my God, what did this teacher used to think I was such a good girl when I was a kid, and now I'm talking about this stuff. What if they think that that I'm a devil worshiper right now, and they're gonna think badly of me? There's this subconscious fear that we can get when we get public, right? And this might kind of sabotage our goals at the beginning, Like, I remember I used to have that fear. I was afraid to even post a selfie, like, years ago, because I was afraid that my family that I have on Facebook might judge me, because, there was this kind of circle of gossip in my family where if one aunt saw we do something, then she's got to tell everything to my grandma, and then she's got to tell it to everyone else, And I was really scared because of that, because I had these people in my real life, and they're going to be like, oh, who are you? What do you do? And I did some stuff also that was relative to, like, female empowerment, where I was, doing content that was related to body positivity for plus-size women. And I was basically afraid that my family, who is Catholic, would think that this is too, sexualized or too adventurous, even though it's something that I very strongly believe in, and something that, that I really strongly support women on. And I was really scared of doing that, not because of my own values, because I know what I stand for, but because I was scared of the reaction. And this is what I'm seeing here, that you might kind of also be afraid of this external backlash that you might get for standing very strongly for expressing your views and opinions publicly. But this says you should do it. And even if you go through some shit doing it, then it's going to be worth it, basically. And as to tweaking of the form, again, you will know best what to do based on how you're feeling it. But just make sure that what you're feeling is not the fear of backlash, but it's just you doing what's right for you. So if you remove anything, you remove it because it doesn't feel good for you, not because you're scared of what someone may say, basically.
Yeah. And it is kind of scary to feel exposed, out on the internet, but I really lean into transparency and authenticity as being, my brand, if that can be a brand, because that is the best protection in a sense that we have. I guess I have a small example of, like, right a couple of years ago when there was fallout and I was voted off the board of a organization I was really involved with, and I was really, shocked and hurt and sad and confused, and within like 6 weeks of that, I was interviewed. I found my way. Somebody wanted to interview me about it, and I'm like, well, all right, and I talked for like 40 minutes, and it was mostly like a monologue. There was a little bit of questions, but I pretty much just laid out the whole story. And maybe even too, some of the questions that were inserted got me to go a little deeper, because I didn't lie about anything, because I don't lie. But I am a little nervous. There was a big delay between, it took a while for that to get, because the idea was for it to be a podcast. And so it got edited, and some other episodes of that series got uploaded, but my episodes didn't. And I'm nervous in a way, because I'm like, what did I say? I don't remember what I said. And two, with the editing, I don't know, how it might be edited. And so I'm a little nervous. And yet I try to comfort myself with knowing I didn't say anything that wasn't true. Just going back 2 years, maybe because initially I was trying to be a little vague. I never really named the organization, because, when you screw me over, like any situation, like somebody gets fired from something, you just don't speak their name anymore. Like, I'm not going to plug them. You can look it up if and that's the thing. People who know me know what it was, or you can look it up and find out. But I was trying to be much more vague initially. And then I did at one point, say the name of the person who was the president, and probably even the other, because there were 2 or 3 people who specifically like really screwed me over, and I did name names. And I felt kind of weird about that. And yet that's my position. Like, I don't engage with them. And so I haven't said it to their face, but I would, because it's true. Like, that's my, my experience of what went on. So it's scary to be very open about things. And yet I think that's what everybody wants as far as community. Like, the reason people think that they know people, be it through, YouTube or watch them on TV or something, is at least in the case of real people. Because if you're playing a character, then I guess maybe you sort of, in a fantasy world, you think you know that character, but that the person that's playing the character is a different person than the character. In this case, I'm just me. And so you do sort of know me, and that, I like being able to connect with people and, bring my message of like, hey, let's all be centered and get in the flow and be the best you can be. Because if we were all doing that, we wouldn't have all these problems. Because when you get in your head and you think about all the problems of the politics and the wars and the pollution and just that can make you very upset. And those things are true, but I don't really feel like it's head in the sand ignoring it. I can't focus on those things, I think, because I'm too sensitive, or just the message I get from the universe is get centered, get clear on what I can do, and do those things. And that's how I impact the world. And in some ways, that's how I help with climate change, is being a good citizen and impacting others in a good way. But I think I've wandered off on a tangent.
No, that's okay. Like, I feel exactly the way you do, with the whole authenticity thing, and the fact that when you say you're too sensitive for some things, I'm exactly the same as you. Like, I really do get it. Like, this kind of, I live, in my cave, aka this room, and I just, I limit so much what I expose myself to because of that sensitivity that you said, which comes with psychic gifts. And, I really relate to what you said. And at the end of the day, like, we can contribute to the world best by using our abilities and, doing something good in our small ways. And if we get overwhelmed by the wave of bullshit that can come from things like the TV or the radio or whatever, then we can focus on what we're really awesome at, So I completely feel you on a personal level. I operate pretty much the same way, even if I have a slightly different area of interest in some ways and different, location or whatever. I approach my life the same way. So I get you. And I think that the other thing that came to my mind is that you said something about your negative experiences. You gave like several examples of how they looked, and with this card spread that we had, it can indicate that those past experiences, and also in a way stopping you from the current expression that you are having right now, is that the fear of the past repeating itself shows certain timidness in self-expression on your end. But this basically shows that the cards didn't promise you that it will never happen again. It says it probably will, but it's not important, because at the end you'll get where you want to be. and those things you lose on the way, they're not worth crying over. So in a way, it was like a very realistic spread that said that, well, you want to make an omelet, you gotta break a few eggs, and the omelet's gotta be tasty when you end up consuming it. So it didn't say that you were doing something wrong, but sometimes it's easy to do things that are like unquestionably, objectively consumable for society. Like, let's say that, I don't know, you're a model and you're just what society considers conventionally pretty. Then it's like kind of hard to dispute that, because okay, she's hot, she's wearing a hot piece of clothing, she's done. But if you start going into the intangibles and into the socio emotional political subjects, then it starts getting dirty, basically, and it's impossible not to have any opposition doing that whatsoever. And even within the spiritual community, there are those who have some ideas, and it's just again, it's not possible to never meet opposition when you do something that's more about the idea than the physical of the world. And it's just the way it is, and doesn't mean you're wrong. It just means that there's life, and then doesn't mean you should stop if you know that what you're doing is what you're feeling in your heart.
Cool. So do you have anything else that you want to say, or do you do other things during the week, or we'll be back next Saturday at 5:30 Pacific time to continue on kind of with a similar iteration, going through maybe the rest of the cards. And
yes, that's what I wanted to do, like finish the Fool's Journey next time.
Yeah.
And I have a whole list of topics, like I said, for other live streams after this. And then we should do Minor Arcana first after we finish the Major Arcana, to kind of do the whole tarot basic stuff. But I also have I noted down some topics for the future live streams that can also possibly diverge. One of them is astrological. It's about certain things about planets, like planets that we also know if we come from Western. There's just different interpretation from Vedic that gives a lot of insight about the nature of these planets. So even if you come from tropical, you will be able to learn a lot. And this also is something that you do in order, because planets also appear in a certain order in Vedic astrology, kind of just like tarot. So it's going to be like an astrology equivalent of what we're doing right now. And that was my first thought of doing this from the astrology standpoint, after we finish the whole tarot Major Minor Arcana journey, which can last for the next month. If we start going into Minor Arcana, it's going to be at least a week for one element, probably, So I have a lot of ideas for the future also. And of course, the timing is staying the way it was.
Excellent. Well, we'll keep on with our frequency of doing this on Saturdays at 5:30 Pacific. And I put on the screen that Making Spirituality Real is Yagoda's holistic healing practice, which involves spiritual coaching and astrology, reiki, tarot, and to reach her Linktree is Linktree/Making Spirituality Real. And her YouTube channel, which you might be watching this on, if you're not watching on my channel, is youtube.com/@Making Spirituality Real. And I will put my stuff up here, and then we'll get some outro music. Please subscribe if you aren't already. And Hecate.com is where all my things are, like a link to the calendar, which is on meetup.com/Hecate's Network, has this event and several other events that happen throughout the week. And where's my bye for now? There's my bye for now. Got some outro music right there. We'll see everybody next time.
Bye.